So thank you all for having me today. Emma, thank you for the invitation. I would be really afraid if I had to compete with these young students here. So hopefully I don't do too much to embarrass myself. I grew up in a small town called Tifton, Georgia. Tifton, Georgia is a top 100 USA town because we don't have enough people to really be a city. Only 17,000 people in Tifton, Georgia. And Tifton, when I was growing up, had one high school. There was a private school that served grades K through 12. But it wasn't very progressive then. So in Tifton, the black people and the white people were separated by a train track. Not many other ethnicities there at the time. So my mother was a custodian. High school graduate, she worked as a custodian for the Board of Education. And she wanted a different life for me. So instead of going to the schools that I was zoned for, she told me that I had to go across the track. Well, the thing about across the track, typically better teachers, definitely a better chance of a good education, exposure to STEM, but predominantly white. So from starting out very early, I was pretty much the only black kid in my class. Kindergarten was great. Met a great teacher, really believed in me. Get into first grade, and then I start having some obstacles. The high marks that I had been getting in kindergarten were no longer there, and we couldn't understand why. By the time first grade was almost over, it was suggested that my parents put me into remedial courses, that maybe I should be in special education because I just wasn't able to compete with my peers in this classroom. My mother, because she had friends at the Board of Education, didn't allow that to happen. I made it to second grade by the skin of my teeth, and it was a really trying time. It was difficult because I didn't really know what was going on. I thought I was doing my work, but evidently I wasn't. Turns out I get into second grade and I'm pretty bored. My teacher notices this, and she could have just said, oh, the same kind of behavior he had experienced in first grade. But she began to look at my homework and to look at my test, and she realized that I was getting all the answers correct. At that point, she began an investigation, and we learned that my previous teacher didn't really like people that looked like me. She didn't think I belonged and thought I didn't deserve a chance at a good education. At this point, there's an uproar. The administration realizes that I'm pretty advanced for my grade and that I should either be skipped up some grades or I should be involved in this program called ILP for Advanced Kids, Independent Learning Program in Georgia. Well, at that point in time, my mother doesn't really believe in that, so continue on to school, getting good grades, and fifth grade comes. Fifth grade was a really trying time in my life. That's when my mother was diagnosed with lupus. So at that point, I guess I don't really need to say it, but I'll point it out just in case you missed. My mother was a custodian, so we didn't have a lot of money. And now we had to pay for all these unexpected bills as it related to her disease. And at that point in time, I had to pick up a part-time job, paper route. So I've been working for the better part of my life. Out of my mother's mortality, I think, she comes home, I can vividly remember the story. She comes home, she shows me her hands. They're calloused and bruised, and she tells me that she doesn't want that type of life for me, that she doesn't want me to earn a living by the sweat of my brow, that she wants me to do some of these positive things that I've heard about at school. So for me, it's like a light switch. At that point, I begin to focus in school. Not that I hadn't been focusing before, but now it's about really taking a deep dive into what I'm learning in science and technology, because at that time with lupus, for those of you who don't know, lupus is an autoimmune disease, a chronic autoimmune disease, and essentially your major organ systems begin to be attacked by your own body. At that time, my mother could only be treated. No cure for lupus, and that really bothered me. So I began to investigate, what do I need to do? How will I be able to fix this? So for me, the only way I could do that in my situation was to get the best education I could. So fast forward to high school, things are going really well. I'm really focused in the classroom, getting all the advanced courses, and it's funny. I walk into the course, to the class, and immediately my teachers think, oh, this is a football player, you know, the broad shoulder thing. He's not going to be able to handle the academic rigor for this course. They soon learn that that's just not the case with me. Everybody that sits beside me, I view them as competition. I finished high school. I graduated 17th in my class, and I'm the first African American. I have 5 full academic scholarships to universities around the U.S. I choose to go to Clark Atlanta University, where I major in biology, because at this point, it's all about being able to fix my mom. Another tragedy happens. The summer between my junior and senior year, my mother dies. So this is a really big blow for me. I graduate, my senior year is pretty much a wash. I've already done all the things I need to graduate for the most part. So I began working, because at that point, I can't make another 4-year commitment, because originally I thought I was going to med school, be a doctor, fix my mom, everything is good. I work for the National Institute of Health. I work at Harvard Med School, Massachusetts General Hospital, and then I pick up a wonderful experience. I am hired as employee number 21 at a startup company based on MIT technology. So my wife, also an African American, PhD from MIT, and she's actually an associate professor here. At that time, we were at MIT, and I got involved with this company, and that's when I first got the exposure to the business side of science. And for me, it was like all the lights came on. I had seen all this technology out and how it wasn't getting out to help people. So this really excited me. It was the first exposure to venture capitalism. Venture capitalism, think of it as investors with lots of money that invest in small emerging companies with the hopes of a huge investment afterwards. So after my time with Momenta, I'm really excited. I know exactly what I want to do. I no longer want to go and get that MD. Now it's a PhD, because I want to come up with a drug therapy. I couldn't save my mom, but I'm sure I'll be able to save some other people from debilitating disease. Get a PhD in biomedical engineering from Cornell. Finally, an MBA from Weatherhead here. And during that MBA, I started a company, Affinity Therapeutics, based on my postdoctoral work. So when I was introduced, you know, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Affinity. I'm also the associate director for the Case Translational Research Partnership. So I think it's safe to say I've had a modicum of success. And it's not to brag or to pop my collar. I've accomplished a lot, but it's really to highlight some of the things that I've been able to do in my career, in the obstacles that I've had. I too have been in some of these marginalized groups. Marginalization can occur for a number of different reasons, from age, disability, sexuality, gender, you name it, you can be marginalized for it and made to feel alone, made to feel too small for the task at hand. So what I'm hoping to show you that in my story, I think there are some lessons that we can learn about how to change this culture. First of all, it was belief. Belief that my mother had in me that I could be a great student, that I could do more than what people were telling me. There was a teacher that ultimately believed in me, and that ultimately made me believe in myself, that I could do all things. There was exposure. Going to this new school, I got exposed to STEM. When my mother was diagnosed with lupus, that's where my love of STEM came, because that was a vehicle for me. That was a vehicle that I was going to use to change my mother's life and my life. There was also expectation. My mother, she was pretty hard on me. the homework and everything had to be done, and amongst some other chores, but she expected the world of me, and she knew I could do it. And her having that belief in me, her life, life of a custodian, her life, she gave so much to help other people, it inspired me. Determination and perseverance. I've had a lot of obstacles. No matter what underrepresented group you may represent in STEM, there are gonna be obstacles. But for me, what I thought about was, I looked at my mother's journey and how hard she had to work. So for me, it was nothing to have to go through some of these obstacles. Being the only one, being the first, that's how I honestly made my living, and that's how I got scholarships. I was the first Black person to do so many things, but I don't care about that. My college, Clark Atlanta University, when I graduated from there, I really like what the college motto is. It says, I will find a way or make one. And that's how I've kind of lived my life. So going forward now, what can we do? I didn't have many role models in my life to show me that there was a pathway forward, but I can't underscore how important having those role models are. So how do we change the culture of STEM? How do we help some of those underrepresented minorities, those underrepresented groups, those marginalized groups, feel like they have a place? I think one thing that we can do is, there are systematic differences and inequalities going on, and they need to be addressed, obviously. But sometimes those are not directly in our control. What we can control individually is our belief in ourselves, our belief that those obstacles will come and that we need to be prepared to face them, not being afraid to be the first. I think what I've seen in STEM is giving people in STEM a voice, talking about these inequalities that affect them, and putting them in a position to succeed is so important. I like to think that I've overcome a lot, and that hopefully my story will be a light to somebody else. I'll leave you with this one last statement. STEM opened up so many doors for me. I've been able to see the world, from giving presentations in Fribourg, Switzerland to Manchester, UK. And now I have a new perspective on what I'm supposed to do for those that are gonna come after me. And that's to be a light. So I ask you to do this with me. Be tenacious and unrelenting in your pursuit of excellence. And when you get to that place, be a beacon of light for those that are coming after you and help them too. Thank you.